Drift diving can feel like an amazing experience when done right. You're literally flying without all of the work needing to fin. Your first drift dive feels like falling through space, thrilling until you realize the current is doing all the driving. I'm Don, and today I'll show you all the skills that you'll need to properly enjoy drift diving, like how to read water like a map, ride the currents to keep relaxed, and surface safely if separated. Let's dive on in. The amazing part is that drift diving can feel like flying because the moving water provides your propulsion while you stay neutrally buoyant. You can steer, pitch, roll, and change depth with tiny inputs, but the water owns your forward motion, so movement can feel a touch like flying. Think of a conveyor belt that speeds up, slows, and turns as it slides around structures. Your job is to reduce drag and choose where on that belt you want to ride. Stay flat and streamlined with hoses tucked and accessories clipped to minimize snags, any entanglement hazards. You ideally want a strong neutral trim to be as streamlined as possible to ensure you can rest in a flat neutral trim without much effort. If the trim is off, you might find it hard to stay flat. Keep your hands still in front of you. Put your fins behind your slipstream and let the water do all the work. Embrace the Peter Pan inside you. Keep an extra eye on your depth, as small fluctuations in the current and landscape can push you up or down. Think of it as water rapids in a moving river. It's hard to think sometimes because it's a 3D river, but it is. Slow, even breathing keeps your buoyancy stable so you do not bob into faster or slower layers of that 3D river, or rather surrounding rivers. This also brings extra importance to keeping an eye on your dive team and keeping level with them, as mentioned. Different depth can have different levels of current because of different rivers. Being uneven in depth is one of the quickest ways to experience party separation. It's important to be ready to have micro adjustments with your breath and being able to control your BCD with the inflator, and also dumping gas if you're ascending to be able to hold your depth band. Choose your depth band deliberately for your dive plan and always keep track of your group. If one person stops to video an animal, everyone must stop or nobody stops. Sticking together becomes a greater challenge because there's so much to enjoy on the dive, but you also have to make sure you're working as a team and staying tight-knit and close with that cluster. And it's also important to note that friction near the bottom slows water, so hugging the bottom contour often reduces speed as well. And there will be turbulence around boulders and coral heads, so give the reef space and avoid parking around the coral and rocks, or else you'll be pulled into strange currents that are pushing around the rock. That could even be upwells or downwells as well. But often just pulling a little bit away from the terrain in the midwater can be faster and cleaner when the plan calls for covering ground. But if you're working with your team to stay exclusive somewhere to film animals or see a certain area, then you would all come down and try to hover near the coral, maybe grab a rock, or find a coral head to block the current with. It's also important to note that corners and constrictions are acceleration amplifiers. Also, this makes situational awareness of positioning your team very important through the course of the dive. Anticipate with body position and awareness, and avoid moving much to correct a burst that will relax as you clear the corner. Vertical components can also be sneaky. As mentioned earlier, the upwelling at wall bases and downwelling along faces can nudge you shallower or deeper without bubbles revealing too much. Sometimes the only way you'll notice is if you're looking at your dive computer and seeing that depth change dynamically. And it's of the utmost importance to have your dive computer visible at all times. Internal waves, riding thermoclines, and haloclines can also push you gently up and down for a few seconds. You should respond calmly with buoyancy control, not fin fury. Often water movement is small rivers pushing and pulling, and it'll pull your whole team and push your whole team equally. So as long as you're matching depth with everyone, you're all going to be moving in the same way. But if you are trying to get out of one of those small 3D rivers, the goal is to swim diagonally, not against it ever. Try to swim diagonal to it until you're able to escape it. ultimately pushing directly against it is just going to wear you out, and it's going to increase your carbon dioxide levels to a high level where you're not even able to make good judgment calls anymore. Not to mention your muscles will get very sore and you'll get a killer headache. Always try to not fight current. Be lazy as possible. And speaking of that laziness, try to use structure to manage speed, not grab it, as you will lose speed and potentially your team, unless everyone's grabbing. And if you are planning on grab, communicate with everyone. Get everyone's eyes saying we're going down. And when everyone's going down, then you grab. This is the most important thing to make sure you don't lose your team or any members of your team. But of course, don't grab reef. Always try to have a safe distance from the reef to protect it and your gear. And for the most part, you're basically relaxing, hovering in trim until you need to kick to go grab a rock, and you just kick with a purpose and then grab and then start to rest. In a drift, it's important to conserve energy by letting water carry you and using that short, precise kicks to cross lanes. If you can feel yourself swimming in place, you are fighting the river and likely your team. Change to a different river or change depth. Keep a tight formation with your team in all cases. Next, let's talk about how you can read the water to get an idea of the current before jumping in. Every drift dive site broadcasts what it's doing if you know where to look. On the surface, foam lines usually run parallel to the current, not across it. Long, coherent streaks hint at a steady flow, while broken swirls foreshadow turbulence. But the interesting part is that often strong winds can bias the top layer of 3 to 6 meters or 10 to 20 feet, so treat the surface as only initial clues. If you're feeling wind, it could be influencing the current at the top of what you can see. And to make a good judgment call on wind, scan for flags, mirroring ball angles, and how boats swing to spot how windy it is, and to spot the movement of the wind, and how much that could be affecting the waters you're about to jump into. When current is pumping at the surface from wind, it may mean the team needs to make a negative entry to get below that fast moving layer where the team meets at 10 to 20 foot mark where it is calmer, or 3 to 6 meters. But another thing you can do before the dive is stick your head in. This will allow you to see fish and other things responding to the underwater current. When feeding, most species face the current, so their nose is pointing to where the water is coming from. If they're kind of swimming in place calmly, the current is present but manageable. If they are working hard to hold a station, expect stronger flow. Soft corals and sea fans function like wind socks and can also give you clues on how strong the current is and which direction is blowing. Particles in the water can also be like moving breadcrumbs, giving another clue of the direction and speed. Topography is another clue in this game of reading currents as well. A dive site in a large shadow of a pinnacle, for example, may mean the drift dive is planned to end once the team reaches the pinnacle shadow, as they will stay there to do the remaining part of the dive. For example, if there's a pinnacle, a big one, you might drop at the head of it where the current's going to push you around the pinnacle, and once you get to the other side, you'll just stay in the shadow until you end your dive, and the boat will pick you up at the shadow. Walls also offer current shadows when the dive team gets behind its ledges, which could change the projection or plan of the dive and overall distance the team might have to drift. Some other interesting characteristics of current and the terrain are unique big coral heads that create downstream eddies, which can be restful but also spin you if you sit in the center of the swirl. Also, channels and gaps act like nozzles and can surge during certain hours of the day. So it might be a good plan around the slower surge by planning around the tides of the day. Also, channels and gaps act like nozzles and can surge during certain hours of the day. So it might be good to plan around the slower surge by planning around the tides of that given day. And also, a really critical piece is if the current is blowing and you are about to decide that it's going to be a drift dive, you want to establish the current direction and speed, and roughly have a plan of attack that you're going to share with your boat driver, or else they're not going to know where to pick you up. You're going to be hoping that they'll figure out where to pick you up. So you want to have a good plan, communicate with the captain, and then you start your dive, your planned drift. You don't start a drift mid-dive. It has to be planned. This ensures the boat driver has an idea of where the group is going and can be ready to pick up the divers in the correct area. They will do their best to follow bubbles, but that's not always possible. If you're enjoying this video, now is a great time to like and subscribe. I post weekly content to help divers grow their skills, build confidence, and explore the ocean with curiosity and care. And by the way, I have a monthly newsletter that tries to cover the latest and greatest of scuba diving industry news. If you love scuba diving as much as I do, it's free to sign up in the description below. I'll see you there. So far, drift diving sounds fairly wonderful, with a few logistics established before entering the water, including having a boat looking for you. There can be a lot of upsides, but what are the downsides that you also have to be aware of to ensure everyone has a safe drift dive? Let's start with separation. This is when the magic carpet ride turns into a systems check to test if you're prepared. If you're prepared, no problem. And after watching this video, I want you to be prepared. Often is the case for diving that we plan to ensure when things go wrong, we'll handle it well. As mentioned earlier, different speeds occur at different depths, acceleration around corners, and small vertical shifts that place you in different lanes of the same larger river. If everyone doesn't stay closely together, it can be easy to lose one another the instant a photographic shark appears. All it takes is one person getting in a different lane of the river that's going slightly faster or slower, and then suddenly they're gonna shoot a lot faster at different speeds as everyone else. And it's important to note that hand signals fail beyond a few meters or 10 feet when everyone is drifting. So it can also be important to carry a very strong torch or light, as that beam can penetrate a lot farther than hand signals to get someone's attention. Also, making use of sound if you need it. But regardless, if you do separate, a shared gas plan means very little if you cannot physically reach each other. So prevention starts with formation and spacing. Enter together. Consider a negative entry if briefed. And I realized I didn't properly explain what a negative entry is. So it's where at the start of the dive, you don't meet at the surface like a positive entry. You would just dive down straight from the boat to about 10 or 20 feet or 3 to 6 meters. Signal each other that you're okay, and then you continue to descend. But this ensures that everyone gets off that top band that can be affected by the wind and is often moving faster than the water below it. And then you descend into the planned depth band before the surface layer moves you apart. And what's common is if you have a small team, you could hold a line, a single file line, or if you have a big team, usually what works better is a chevron, which is basically an angle where you have one person, your dive team lead or dive guide or dive master is going to be in front, and then everyone chevrons out to the sides. This just makes sure that the lead can look left and right and see everyone, because it can be harder to see everyone in a single file line. But if you're in a single file line, it's important that every link in the chain understands where the person is in front of them and behind them. And while in formation, it's important to try not to get more than 2 or 6 feet away from someone, ideally closer. This ensures you can see each other's hand signs if needed, but when that fails, resort to a light. Keep the leader slightly up current and visible. And if you see a corner coming up, avoid having too much gap in your single file if you're doing single file, which can disrupt the ability to see people in front of you or behind you. And I just really want to pound in that lights, even during the day, extend that visual communication range and your ability to communicate with your whole dive team. So they're super important to have a very bright and penetrating light. It is much easier to see a bright light in the distance than anything else. And speaking of planning, you also want to plan gas management with drift realities in mind. Set a firm minimum that covers a controlled ascent, a safety stop if conditions allow, and surface signaling with a DSMB. On a one-way ride, turn pressure is less relevant than minimum rock bottom you will not cross. Now, so far we've spoken about how to avoid party separation, but if it does happen, and trust me, if you dive long enough, it probably is going to happen to you at some point. Here's a 3-step process to keep in mind to handle buddy separation in almost every case. First, stop. You don't want to be moving around much, but of course, if you're drifting, you can't fight the drift. Don't fight current, just continue to drift. Spin up to, but no more than, 1 minute to look around. Try to create noise. Try to shine your light as much as you can in a 360 degree and look for everyone else's light. If someone's nearby, they'll hear your banging or see your light. Second, if you do not establish contact, deploy your DSMB and begin a controlled ascent at about 30 feet per minute or 10 meters per minute, stabilizing for that safety stop if gas and conditions permit. What's important is you get that DSMB up as soon as possible so that the boat realizes that you're no longer with the party, someone's coming up, they can start having eyes on the DSMB and make sure that they don't lose it. If you're going a different direction, that DSMB is going to be very important to anyone on the surface. There you are. And ideally, you don't get lost from there. And so from that point, you should at some point start seeing a boat come to your DSMB. But still, so you don't need to panic, you can just safely ascend to the surface. And third, on the surface, keep the DSMB upright. If the boat hasn't seen you, try to use audible and visual signals until you're able to get the boat driver's attention. And during this time, stay alert for other boat traffic while you try to conserve energy. And I do want to state that it's never happened to me yet. Of course, I'm going to knock on wood that when I have seen someone party separated or I have been party separated, as long as you deploy the DSMB, it gets the attention of the boat driver. As long as you do it early enough, the further away it is, the harder it's going to be to see. So the goal is to get that DSMB up as soon as possible. And once you're on the surface too, you can usually keep an eye out for a DSMB from the rest of your party, which will probably also be looking for you from whatever position they're at. But the goal is to not swim towards them as much as you might like. You're probably going to just waste energy and wear yourself out. Let the boat come to you, keep eyes on their DSMB, and you might be able to help the boat captain make their way over there once they picked you up. And keep in mind, if you are separated and you do find your team off in the distance from a silhouette, it's important to not try and spend too much energy trying to get back to your group. If you can't, just signal that you're aborting the dive. You don't want to try and struggle and make things even more dangerous where potentially they can't reach you or you can't reach them. It's better to abort, meet them at the surface. And of course, always, it's important to never rush to the surface. Keep it calm and controlled. Maintain control and complete the stops when gas and conditions allow, but prioritize separation procedures and traffic awareness. On the surface, increase your footprint. Sometimes I've seen some divers carry a much larger SMB than their DSMB, and so you might be able to deploy a giant sausage at the surface to increase your visibility footprint. And so you should do that to make sure you're as visible as possible if the boat's not near you. And by the way, I've mentioned DSMBs several times. I'm still an avid believer that every diver should carry a DSMB in almost every case, except for maybe you're diving a cave or something, with zero possibility for boats. It often helps in a lot of cases, and if you don't have it, you're kind of screwed in SOL in certain situations. So I almost always have just the DSMB in my pocket ready to go just in case. It's just not worth thinking about it when you need it and you don't have it. It's not the news you want. But it's also important to be comfortable deploying a DSMB, because if you don't know how to deploy it, it could potentially, botch things up worse than they are, and it could also be a stressor for your dive. So practice those skills. I have a video here that you can watch after this that will be a good primer if you're not very comfortable with DSMBs. Being able to deploy your DSMB quickly and smoothly and automatically is a skill that can truly make a stressful situation feel a lot more normal and relaxed. What's important here, that party separation doesn't need to be a big deal. It just means the dive aborted a little bit earlier, no problem. The conditions probably were a little harsh. Always things to be learned, but it's a part of diving. No biggie. The important thing is everyone makes it back safely. Debrief the dive once aboard and capture what the current did at different depths and around corners so the next drift dive is even cleaner. There's always a lesson to be learned from debriefings, and discussing them as a team with an open mind is a great way to be a safer diver down the road. Drift diving can be super fun and relaxed, but it does have some additional risks to consider, so going prepared and ready keeps it fun and relaxed. Accept what the ocean controls. Own what you can and turn current into a guided ride. If you're looking to master your DSMB skills, I have a video that covers using a DSMB here. And if you're wanting to know about the anatomy of DSMB and what to look for in your own DSMB before purchasing, check this video out here. The more you know, the more you'll love and protect the ocean. Until next time.